Okay, I'm live. Let's see if anyone shows up to this before I get started. If not, it don't matter. Actually, one thing I'm going to do, get on Discord real quick. Send an invite to my brother. I should send him a text too. Just bear with me, folks. Just bear with me. I'm waiting for anybody to show up anyway. So, that. I got Doubting Thomas and Red and Lord Redfang. Hey guys, how's it going? So yeah, sorry, I'm sending a text to my brother and sending him a link on Discord. I think I will. My favorite topic. Hey, you're welcome to join if you want, Nicola. I can send you a link. You know me, I'm flabby on ethics. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but I know it's one of my favorite topics. Not really. Let's see, there it goes. And this is, so what I'm going to be looking at here is a video from Breakfast Taco's channel. It's one of his Bloodbath series. And yeah, it was 212 Christian ethics versus secular ethics. There are some things that were said here. Oh, heading to Stony Rapids in a couple hours. Okay, not a problem. There were some things that were said. I only caught portions of this debate when it was happening, and there were some things that were said that I caught that I was like, well, wait a minute, that's interesting, and thought about them for a little bit, but then immediately kind of like pushed them into the background because I don't know if I had the full context of the conversation, or at least that part of the conversation. So I just kind of put it on the back burner, and now I'm going back to it and to look at it. So here we go.
Michael Pearl is a very prevalent.
We're past all the opening arguments. We're 40 minutes in, and you got Godless Engineer, Jed, Flying Spaghetti, Auditor, Wi-Fi Gospel, and Bryce J.
Child abuser that teaches other people to abuse children. You've got Hannah Grace Rose in 2011. Your question was about what Christians
Show
have
me a
killed
Christian.
their unreal. Right,
Yes.
Hannah Grace Rose Williams, 2011.
What
Hannah
did she
Williams,
do?
a 13-year-old Ethiopian adoptee, died of
She wasn't a real Christian then.
hypothermia and malnutrition. Her adopted parents, Larry and Carrie Williams, regularly beat her with a 15-inch plastic tube.
Remember, Godless Engineer. People claiming to be Christian doesn't make them a real Christian.
By Pearl, forced her to sleep in a barn, basically contributing to her death. Yeah, sure, that's not stoning, but it's definitely using Christian ethics in order to kill a child. There's Lydia Schatz in 2010.
And how is that Christian ethics?
Sean Paddock, 2006.
Can you answer the question? How is that Christian ethics?
Read Michael Pearl's slot.
No, I'm asking you.
How is that Christian ethics?
How's
God
that Christian
specifically
ethics?
says to slaughter your children if they disobey or curse your parents. Exodus 21:17.
Yeah, regarding that thing with the law, when Jesus says, and this also says this in Matthew 15, the whole aspect of saying like that these people would be put to death, Jesus was trying to make it clear that when it comes to certain things that were happening in the law, that a lot of people were not actually practicing things the way that they were intended. That's the entire point of verse 1 when he says
That's a historical take, not necessarily a theological one. So that there's a problem with the historical versus. So Godless Engineer could be making a point here. This person thought that these particular things that they were reading from the Old Testament were these ideas were something to be utilized in order to punish their children or to make their children pay for being disobedient or disobedient or unruly. And they took those and they ran with them, right? So you have a problem there. You could have a problem there because this person's understanding is not the same as Bryce J's understanding, and Bryce is pointing to more of a historical. I think he's pointing more to the historicity of it, not necessarily the theological or the religious, I should say.
He didn't wash his hands, and then he's like, "Well, you don't apparently kill your children."
Sure.
So
well,
I mean, like that's not him literally. That's not him supporting killing your children.
I beg that, Mama.
Do you know where
He's
the
literally-
doctrine
it's
of two or three
rhetorical.
witnesses comes from?
What was the question? Wi-Fi?
Do you know what the doctrine of two or three witnesses come from? Why we need witnesses today in court?
Well, the 2 or 3 witnesses thing, there's a verse in the Old Testament, I can't cite you the passage, but it says if 2 people say the same claim, then you can go ahead and kill somebody based on 2 testimonies.
Well,
you can't commit a person to death on 2 testimonies or on a singular testimony.
Correct understanding of that is that you can't just take your child and say, my child's not listening to me, so I'm going to drown them in the bathtub and beat them until they die.
Right. You have
That's
to have
not
2
Christian
people
ethics.
say that the child's not listening.
I don't know if that actually applies though, because that goes more to like that's not really within the family. That's going more towards the civil, right? So you've got these ethics that are being laid out that deal within a family, within the local family dynamic versus the societal dynamic. So I don't know if what Wi-Fi Gospel here is actually refuting that in any way, right? So if you have a person that's accused of murder and you need to have more than 2 witnesses in order to convict that particular individual of murder, that may not necessarily apply to an unruly child and what their parent or parents do with their unruly child. That may not require the same level of, I don't know, evidence.
And then you can go ahead and drown them.
You have to have independent lines of witness, and especially for a stonings were community events. You didn't just stone somebody in your backyard, you brought them to the town square.
Yes, but you're dealing with somebody who did something within the society, not necessarily within a localized family dynamic. Wi-Fi. So there's possibly some nuance there, but I'm not going to get into it. I haven't studied it. Like I said, I'm starting this at a portion of the debate what I have not heard, and like I said, there were some things that were said that I thought were interesting. This is not it, but I will comment on it, and that's the only thing that I can really. It's the only thing I can really think of. I don't know if the same level of the idea of like you have to have 2 witnesses. So you need 2 witnesses to tell the township, yes, it is indeed that, let's say John's kid is an unruly son of a bitch or is as obedient as hell. So now it's justified for John to, kill his kid or whatever. I don't know if that was actually the case when it came to a father or the parents and their children.
Sounds fun. A good old Christian gathering where you stone your children.
A good old. Also, by the way, these situations that you brought up about these people like beating their children to death and stuff like that. Did they actually do that because they thought that was Christian ethics?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if those people actually thought that, if they actually believed that, then that's exactly what I was saying before. So Bryce, that's a problem, right? So just because just because that may not actually be the case, or they don't have a good understanding of that. For some reason, whatever they gleaned from it, they thought that they understood it well enough to implement what they read in the Bible as a way of punishing or, saving their kid or whatever. I don't know.
Really? Which one?
Michael Pearls.
Michael Pearls killed his child because of what again? I want to look this up.
No. Michael Pearl wrote a book to train up a child that talks about subduing a child for Christ and beating them into submission.
Which one? What was the book
Now-
called?
Huh? To train
What's
up
the
a
book called?
child.
To Train Up a Child?
Well, I just want to point out that what you guys seem to be doing is trying to do an internal critique, or I'm actually not quite sure what you're trying to do. If you're
Well,
trying
that
to
fell
do an
apart.
internal
He thought he had it, but then he let it go.
critique, I'm not sure you're getting anywhere.
Well,
Well,
if you're
you're
laying out,
saying-
if he's laying out examples, if John is laying out, John being Godless Engineer, is laying out examples of people saying that they're Christian, admitting that they're Christians, and then using things from the Bible to punish or hurt their kids or to make their kids pay for for being disobedient or unruly or whatever. Yeah, that may not actually comport with what Christianity espouses, but for some reason they took it that way. So there could be a problem with these particular ethics. Yeah.
External critique, hold on.
I'm just playing a little devil's advocate there. I don't always agree with John or Godless Engineer. Sometimes I think some of his argumentation is pretty flabby, but I don't think that this isn't. I don't think it's really a problem. I think it sets the stage for the fact that, yes, you have people that will understand things, ideas, and things laid out in the Bible as quote unquote good ways to do things or ethical ways to punish a child. And if another person goes, well, no, as a Christian, I don't adhere to that. Yeah, but you do understand that there is this idea that is espoused within these within the Old Testament that say that this is perfectly fine to do. And then they brought up the idea of the witnesses, but I don't even know. I haven't heard anything to say that witnesses were required in the cases of unruly children.
If you're trying to do an external critique, I'd like to ask which one you're doing. If you're trying to do an external critique, I'd like for you to actually provide a moral theory in which you're calling these things bad.
I feel like that should be a knock against you because you're trying to get us into tag.
No, that has absolutely nothing to do with tag. You can provide any moral theory you want, and I will grant you the meta-ethical level of this moral theory, completely fine. But just because you have an arbitrary meta-ethical level of the theory doesn't mean that the theory itself is consistent with you calling these things bad. So it's not.
I mean, I believe that Jed laid it out before that we're going with secular humanism as our grounding there.
And what part of secular humanism says you can't beat your children?
I feel like doing the least amount of harm would suffice.
If it was objectively proven that beating your children would cause them less harm in the near,
I don't know if Wi-Fi Gospel really wants to take this stance.
way greater, better positive results in the future, would it then be okay?
Really, you think given all the studies that we have on physical and mental abuse, you think that beating a child would be a good thing?
No,
Yes,
it wouldn't,
but
because that's-
studies show the exact opposite. Research
Yeah,
shows
right.
that
See, Jed
beating
just took it. So, yeah, traumatizing your children has not been shown to be a net positive.
your children and physical punishment is actually a detriment to child
Okay.
development.
So that was a hypothetical.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and he just walked right over it. It was a pretty. How did you not see that? How does Wi-Fi Gospel treat his kids?
answered
correct.
yes.
Yes.
If beating your children was actually good for them, then I would say, yeah, I agree with it. But studies show
Okay.
that beating your children and physical punishment is actually detrimental to their well-being and their
See,
development.
that's called a loaded question. You
It's a
probably
hypothetical
go
to
and
test
look
your
that up.
logic.
No,
Okay, so
right.
you
Yeah,
guys
but
base
it was
everything-
loaded.
So you guys do base everything then with the secular humanism. Do you guys follow the secular humanist manifesto?
I don't
I mean,
follow it to a T. Like I said, I don't believe it's gospel. I don't give my ultimate authority over it to it, but
Mhm.
I think it's mostly good.
Your solar
right,
brain.
it's a good
your
it's a good
solar brain.
foundation to build off of.
Okay. So again, you guys use your principle as the harm principle, though, right? Like that's the ultimate foundation for describing something as good or bad.
I think it's pretty reasonable to me. Yeah, harm is bad, well-being is good.
Okay. So how do we determine whether or not something is harmful?
Well, there's a couple fundamental principles that we need to establish. One is that life is preferable to death, pleasure is preferable to pain, joy is preferable to sadness, health is better than sickness. So once we can agree on those, then it's pretty easy to see, stabbing someone in the face is bad for their well-being.
Well, I mean, all of those
I would-
situations, except for the last one, I would honestly argue can be demonstrated on the contrary with a lot of different types of people. So I'm not really sure how that actually is somehow your universal foundation for goodness.
On certain people, so you're talking about exemptions or exceptions to the rule? So because they can be, okay, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, you can actually look at the
Maybe I misheard him.
pragmatic and statistical data on what constitutes as health and well-being, and we actually have measures for well-being in societies and for how good a society actually is, which is what I brought up earlier. Is the most secular societies seem to have high rates of well-being, whereas the more Christian a society is, the
Hello.
it tracks on those measures.
Yeah,
So
so
we
we
can
can
get in-
definitely get into the studies. I don't have a problem getting into the
Oh,
studies.
of course, Bryce doesn't have a problem getting into the studies. That'll be interesting. Hey, what's up, Midnight?
Yeah, I had to change my name back to this, otherwise you wouldn't recognize me. What are you doing?
Oh, what was it before?
Oh, don't worry about it. I thought you
Oh.
I thought you didn't let me in because you didn't know that you didn't know who it was. But anyways, so
Oh, I can pretty much figure out who you are based on your given trend.
okay. Wow, am I that predictable? Jesus.
Sometimes, yes.
Oof.
Unless something's completely changed, it's pretty good at predicting that.
Wow. So I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing, but this
It's not.
this guy,
It's neither good nor bad. It's just it is
Well,
what it is.
fair. But you know what? This guy worries me. Like
Which one?
the wife. Yeah, which one? The Wi-Fi guy. He's
Oh.
like, it's okay to be your children for Christ. I'm like, are you high?
Yeah, I think and then he goes, I don't know if he goes, I think what it seems to me, and then he just trying to do an internal critique. Well, no, maybe not. It's like, boo. I was like,
Like,
okay.
what the fuck?
I don't know where that was supposed to go, but okay. Hey, Wi-Fi gospel, maybe you should stop being a heretic. Maybe you should stop placating to a heretic, right? You're an Orthodox Christian who sits there and does content with a Calvinist. The fuck is wrong with you? If I remember correctly, he admitted to Mark Reed in a debate that they were having that he holds to apostolic succession. He's an Orthodox Christian, but he does content with Joel Sedekase. Joel Sedekase is a Calvinist. He's a filthy proddy. He holds to sola scriptura. That's heretical for Orthodox Christians.
Well, anyways, continue if you want. If you have more to say. But
They get the part that I heard is past this. So trying to get through this, but some of the things that they're bringing up here, like when Bryce was bringing up, well, it doesn't say whether or not they actually did that or not. Well, we're not talking about historicity here. We're talking about whether or not the ethic is there in the book and whether or not people find it to be, good ethics. And it seems that based on what Godless Engineer was bringing up, there are people who kind of went, oh yeah, these things that I was taught from the Old Testament would be a good thing. Whether or not they sit there and go, well, a real Christian who actually understands this stuff would never actually do that. Well, okay, but you still have to admit there's a problem, right? They read it in this book and went, yeah, I can beat my kid or I can kill my kid for being unruly.
studies because like my opening obviously was really short and I didn't quote a bunch of things specifically, but I do have an astronomical amount of actual studies that we can specifically.
Which is interesting because he said it takes two. Remember, he said it takes two witnesses, right? Wouldn't a mom and a dad be two witnesses? Like one of the things I was talking about earlier was the idea of I wasn't sure whether or not the two witnesses. So in order to convict someone of murder, according to the Old Testament, you needed to have at least two or more witnesses to convict someone of murder, right? And he was bringing that up in the context of someone punishing their child or putting their child to death for being disobedient or being unruly. Well, so now it just popped into my head, when the mother and the father constitute two witnesses? If the mother and the father both say, yes, our child is unruly and disobedient, there's your two witnesses. So there you go.
Read if we really wanted to do some armchair science. But the thing that I'm talking about regarding the harm principle, right, is that you say that it depends on whether or not that's something like on the principles of life is better than death. What were the other ones, Jed? I'm sorry, that there was life
health
is better than death.
sickness, joy is better than sadness, pleasure is better than pain.
Okay, so two of those that I want to reference: joy is better than pain, and life is better than death. Right?
Uh-oh.
These two specific things. Did I just freeze? Am I still here?
You are frozen, but
You're good. We can hear
your
you.
audio stays fine, but your camera freezes.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad. I have bad internet.
Then get off the camera. What's wrong with you?
So those two principles specifically, right? Is that like a universal or like an objective principle that we're actually basing everything off of, like life being better than death, or is that just
Objective in towards a goal? Yes, it would be objective towards the goal of well-being. It wouldn't necessarily be objective in the sense that it's mind or stance independent. Yikes, Bryce.
it's like something that's considered useful in like a pragmatic sense, kind of like what Godless Engineer said? Like, is it just pragmatic? Is it just useful?
When you say, is it objective? What do you mean exactly?
Yeah. So, like, is that standard something that would be considered independent, right, of the first human being, for example, stating that, life is better than death, right? So, like,
See, there he is. He's trying to appeal to an ultimate authority. He wants to go back. He wants to do this idea that you have this one person that is ultimately right, and now we can say all these things are necessarily right. We can basically, we now can just we can avoid all reason. We don't even have to apply reason. We have a person or some being that says this is the absolute standard. The problem is if it's coming from an individual, there's the argument that makes it subjective, right? The only way it could be absolutely, like, in a sense, like an objective in the sense of mind independent or stance independent would mean that it would exist independent of minds. So, okay. No individual is required. We are simply seeing this for what it is and adopting it. We observe it, we adopt it, we implement it.
a man stands up one day and nobody else has ever said that statement in their life, and the man goes, life is better than death, and then everyone goes, oh, this dude's cooking, right? Like, does that actually, like, is it then therefore the case, or is there something that's external to human beings that actually makes that the case?
Well, even if there was something that's external to human beings that makes it the case, and it's another being, then that would also be subject to that particular external being, or to that being that is external to humans. You've just basically shifted the ontology. So if morality is not coming from humanity, but is coming from some other ontology separate from humans, then it's still dependent upon that particular thing, unless the morality in and of itself has its own, is in and of itself its own thing. That would be the objective. But in that case, it becomes problematic because the morality becomes what it is, and God even comports to it.
Well, I mean, I think we could say that it's external to humans in the sense that all life forms,
Moral
for the most
principles are
part,
external
prefer
to humans?
No, don't say it's external.
alive, and that humans throughout our entire evolution, before we were even capable of speech,
Ethics is based in reasoning. The fact that there are certain creatures on this planet that have social preferences within their makeup doesn't necessarily mean that there's any reasoning going on. I don't know. That's diving more into it than you might want to. But you're talking about ethics, so you're talking about moral reasoning. If you're just trying to say there are these things, and we just say, yep, there's those things, and we adopt them, and that's it. There's no moral reasoning even necessary. It's just there they are. We adopt them. End of story.
Also, I know you were being facetious before about it, about the parents being the two witnesses, but I kind of agree. Regarding what you said, the mother.
I'm going to send you a list of the different ways objective can be used in moral theory, despite how many ways it can be used. This Christian ethics is still subjectivist. Yes. Yeah, I think you actually sent me that before, Nicola. Yeah, because objective has many different usages, but normally in the sense of these particular conversations, it's normally this idea of like, well, is it of God? Okay, well, is it God's moral reasoning that we're adopting? God is an agent that is reasoning this stuff up, that it's his thoughts and reasons saying, well, I think this is a good thing for these people to do amongst themselves. Now, that doesn't necessarily, that wouldn't mean that God would have to comport to these morals, because that God doesn't have to be moral per se. He just reasons that when I created this particular dynamic, this is the way I think that this is the particular way that human beings should behave when it comes in some kind of ethical sense when it comes to one another. But then all we're doing is adopting some other ethical reasoning. There is no ethical reasoning on our part. There's no ethics involved. We're just adopting that. We're just saying, okay, yay or nay. We're not going, wait a minute. The reasoning would come in once somebody brings out some kind of ethical reasoning and says, yeah, I think if a person does X, they should be killed. And we go, are we sure we want to do that? They've immediately started to implement their own reasoning as to why that should be the case. Yep. In these conversations, is it from humans, which is why I employed the Star Trek test. If Klingons existed, would them killing someone for spilling their drink be objectively moral?
I mean, from their perspective, it would, because of the Klingon gods. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'm not up on Klingon ethics, so.
preferred life over death.
So the moral principle of life is better than death, which then constitutes the harm principle, is something that is external to human beings. Is that what you're saying?
It's developed through evolution. Sure.
Developed through evolution, the thing that only determines survivability.
That might be going more towards some kind of moral realism there, Jed. That's saying that it's some property within nature that is adopted by multiple things. I wonder if Jed holds to some kind of moral realism. And he's not okay.
Well,
I'm still honestly, I'm still playing with air theorists and moral nihilism, because I honestly, from my position, I really don't know how oughts are ever true. I really don't know how an ought is ever true.
we value survivability because
I've been meaning to get JD Kane on my channel sometime to talk about this. He's dabbled more in this, I think, than I have.
Well, I never heard of an ought had to be true. It's just an ought is something we like. I almost use a definition in a sentence. The word, like, for me, ought is something that we have to do. Like, I ought to take out the garbage, otherwise it stinks.
Yeah, it goes to, that can go to deontology or something. That can go into that can go into like deontology, if I remember correctly. But I still don't think an ought is a true statement, right? It is the case that you can take the garbage out before it starts to sink, right? But whether you ought to do it,
Well, I mean, if you want to, I don't think ought even have.
that's where moral nihilism and aerotherism come in to play, and there's a couple other ones that play on it too, because most, like, the way that propositions work is they normally describe what is. So you're looking at, if I make the statement, my brindle pit bull is sleeping on my orange couch, right? That proposition is I take a picture of it and I show it to you, and they go, yeah, what Jay just said is true. There is a brindle pit bull sleeping on his orange couch. Now, some people would be like, "Oh my God, that's gonna look weird. A brindle pit bull on an orange couch." Hey, it's more of a turmeric orange. It's not really a bright orange, so calm down. Either way, that proposition, that the way that's formed, the way that proposition is formed, the way that we use our language, we would say that proposition is true because it comports to that particular circumstance, right? The dog, the couch, right? All that kind of shit. But with oughts, that gets a little bit more interesting. Right? Because, like, some people will go, well, it's always the case that it's always, you ought never kill a human being. Well, that's never the case. People believe that you can kill a person, that it's perfectly fine to kill a person in self-defense. Instead, we go, well, a person ought not murder. Well, okay. What does that mean? It means you ought not kill a person with ill intent or malice, at least according to our laws. Okay. How is that true? It's true that I can kill someone, and it's true that I won't kill someone, but I don't know where the ought becomes a truth.
People who value survivability tend to survive. And if you don't value your own life, you're just going to die and not reproduce. So in a sense, we could say nothing is objectively good or objectively bad. Ultimately, everything is subjective within morality because we're making judgments.
Pause.
Mm-hmm.
He said if you don't value your own life, you're not gonna like. What if I do value my life, but I don't want to reproduce? Like, what the hell is that shit?
Yeah, like I said, they're getting into parts of this conversation, and mainly I took it back so that I could get what I saw that piqued my interest, and hopefully get some more context into it. But now I see this conversation goes down more rabbit holes than it's even worth. Right? The idea that these guys right here, the Christians, they're not talking about ethics. If they probably hold that divine command theory is probably more reasonable than any kind of reasoning, right? If you're going off divine command theory, you're not using any reasoning. You just hold that there's this divine thing, and it commands what is good, it commands what is bad, it commands what is normal, whatever the case might be. You're just following its rules. You don't have to think about it. You nothing. You just follow its rules. There's no reasoning going on. So ethics goes right out the fucking window. All you've done is adopted it. You've just following orders. That's it. So the idea of saying, well, let's look at secular Christian ethics versus secular ethics. Does secular ethics require us to actually do a little bit of thinking? Yeah. Does Christian ethics necessarily require us to do any kind of thinking? Well, not if you're a Christian that holds to divine command theory. Exactly. Case closed. So which one do you want? Do you want one where we do a little bit more thinking about stuff, or do you want one where we just follow the rules? I want one where we just follow the rules. Okay, then you have no say. You've just thrown reasoning right out the fucking window. There's no reason for us to even reason it. But maybe that's a bad take on my part.
About actions.
Yeah. So then I guess in that case, like, because I'm trying to figure out like the overall whittled down principle down to the root. Are you then saying that evolution is the ultimate thing then that determines whether or not things are morally true?
No. Oh my God.
False.
Evolution ingrains an idea.
Wait,
in
what
our
did you
heads.
say?
So
No.
evolution
Oh my God. Is that
makes all
something you
humans.
said?
it's a stupid question because I don't know if that's supposed to be a gotcha or not. And even the way Jed is answering it, evolution, the theory of evolution is just the way things is just is a scientific theory on the way that we see where we observe diversity in life, in living things. Allele frequencies changing over time, all that, natural selection, that whole shit. The idea that there's any kind of morality that comes out of that particular scientific theory is asinine.
What was the question, by the way? I think I missed it.
He asked if evolution was the ultimate source for morals.
Oh, that's retarded. Also, Red Fang. So by their logic, I have more moral value than them because I have 3 kids.
It's possible. I think there's some people. I think there's some people that would hold to that. Yeah. Like people who don't have children don't have as much moral worth as people who do have children, because people who aren't successfully breeding or doing their duty to have children or reproduce definitely don't have the same moral weight, the same moral considerations as those who have.
Value life and pleasure and avoid suffering.
Evolution determines whether or not things are true or false, is what you're saying.
No,
I
that's
don't
not what he
buy
said.
that. I think
No,
evolution.
you're
determines-
being
ingrained an
disingenuous
idea.
right now, Bryce.
He says that he
No,
said it
Bryce,
ingrained an
you're being-
idea
Yeah.
that's
Right, right.
in our head that
Godless engineer is actually he's actually interrupting Jed right now.
You're being
determines whether or not
disingenuous,
these
Bryce.
things are the
You're being
case,
disingenuous.
right?
You're reframing what he said in a straw man fashion. So
No, I'm
that's-
not.
Let me
He
try
said
to
that
read
there's
it.
an
That's what you
idea in
did.
his head. Try it again, Jed.
Evolution ingrains
Sorry.
ideas in our head, like the promotion of survivability. It's true that we
Yeah, I don't like that position that Jed is taking right now. That's a little flabby.
have the idea that survivability is good in our head because of evolution. But is it true that survivability is good? I would say that is a subjective assessment.
Okay, so so survivability is subjective then.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then
so
you're using
humans like
then you have
surviving.
yeah. So then a subjective principle is the thing that determines harm?
Well, if you don't survive, you die. So then harm could play into that. If somebody harms you enough, then you could die and not survive. So then sure, we could say
Yeah.
that it's subjective that harm could cause a limitation to survival.
Yeah, but the principle itself that you're saying constitutes harm is something that's like it's survivability. But you said whether or not survivability is good is subjective. So then again, the principle that you're using to determine things as good or bad is a subjective principle itself, survivability. You admitted that yourself.
Yeah, ultimately, everything that we value is subjective.
So harm is subjective.
Well, harm,
Ethics is moral reasoning, and that would go to our reasoning, which would be subject to us. So that would make it subjective, Bryce. Holy shit, this guy's thicker than his fucking microphone.
isn't subjective, but the
The
fact that
principles
we
for
don't
harm
like
are not?
harm is subjective.
So the principles for harm are subjective, but harm itself is not.
Right. Like it's a fact of reality that if
And
I stab you in the face,
Go ahead,
it's going to
Wi-Fi.
be, it's going to cause you harm and be a detriment to your survival. But
Is
it's
there-
subjective that I care about survival and limiting harm.
Is there anybody who would actually hypothetically like to be stabbed in the face?
Maybe if you're getting some sort of surgery on your face and they have to stab a small portion of it to implant, I don't know, plastic surgery into your face to give you a facelift or something. But in certain situations, we recognize that there's a risk reward factor. And then with consent, we can say, hey, you know, if it's
Out of all of this, that's what Wi-Fi Gospel asked. Out of all of that, that's what Wi-Fi Gospel asked. Fucking A.
going to be better for my pleasure and well-being to have a small bit of harm that does me more good in the long run, then sure, we could say that's good. So it's situational.
So then that's
well,
not the
when
harm.
Or a relative sometimes.
Well, when I get a second, there's something I want to correct about something that was said earlier, but I just putting that out there.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, well, Wi-Fi Gospel seemed to indicate that maybe Christian ethics is where we get the idea of like using witnesses, like multiple witnesses and like court cases and stuff now. And that actually comes from ancient Mesopotamia. So
Yeah, I would just ask him if Christian ethics is the reasoning of us or the reasoning of a God. I wonder if that I haven't gone to the very beginning of this open portion of the quote unquote bloodbath debate. Well, according to Breakfast Tacos, it's a mega bloodbath debate. Um, there's not enough blood in these 4 bodies for this bath. But that would be the first question I would ask. That's all I would ask.
Like the Code of Hammurabi, not Christian ethics.
In the U.S., when we made it so that you had to have 2 or 3 witnesses to convict somebody, we went to the ancient Code of Hammurabi.
No. I'm saying that the ancient Code of Hammurabi is where it first appears, and so everything after that is dependent upon it. And I would,
Or not necessarily dependent, but could be derivative of it.
I would also
That's a
contend
genetic
that
fallacy.
no, it's not a genetic fallacy. I'm just saying that's the origin of it. The Israelite community, the Israel.
Yeah, he's not saying that it's false because it comes from there. Fucking A, Wi-Fi. Jesus Christ. He didn't say anything was false. He was just basically pointing to a tradition in which this particular ancient Near Eastern tribe adopted laws from another ancient Near Eastern tribe. For fuck's sake.
Israelite nation, when they were forming their laws, they formed their laws with the other laws around them in mind, and so they made laws that were similar to the Code of Hammurabi as well as other civilizations. And that, so basically their stuff was informed by ancient Mesopotamia. So it actually wasn't Christianity, it was the ancient Mesopotamians.
So that's an assumption that Christianity isn't true in order to make that argument.
No.
No, it's not. No, it's looking at the history of it's a historical critique. Oh my God, Wi-Fi. Have you not been paying attention? Take some cocaine, whatever you need to do. I would argue if he took cocaine, he'd probably be thinner.
The Code of Hammurabi comes well before the laws.
I don't think you understand what Wi-Fi's saying.
Where does Christianity say that those laws came from?
Well, Christianity, well, according to Judaism, the laws come from God. But that may not necessarily be true. From what we can see, we can see that there are some writings in there in the Old Testament that do happen to kind of, look similar to older laws from other ancient Near Eastern cultures. This is a historical one. This is where these conversations kind of go crazy, because they go back and forth between history, whether or not these are actually implemented in a historical sense, or just looking at them from a religious sense or a theological sense, right? You're looking at under this idea of the Christian ethic. It's going off of the idea that there's an actual God that exists, and this God has deemed it that has written it upon our hearts that we have a particular moral standard. That moral standard is by and large part of how the Christians would argue it is by itself a part of God. So when God made us in his image, the Imago Dei, part of being in his image is having his moral sense installed in us.
God,
for lack of better words.
Okay, so you have to assume that Christianity is lying. That claim.
We don't
is
need
not
to
true
assume.
in
We
order
can
to
just
make
look
that.
at history.
I mean, this isn't a debate on whether or not Christianity is true. So
so
I
did
actually have a
God
question that based
come
on
to the
Seth
ancient
Godinez.
Mesopotamians first? Is that what he did? He went to the ancient Mesopotamians first and was like, fuck, they're not doing what I wanted. So I guess I'll pick the Israelites.
Were you a Christian before? I don't remember, John.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you should understand the principle that the law of God is written on human hearts, correct?
No, I do not understand that. I understand.
No. You don't understand that? You don't believe it, or you don't understand it? It's not a hard thing. It's not a hard concept to understand. But it is an interesting one. I wouldn't even refute it. I would just say, let's go with let's see where this goes. Right. So Wi-Fi. I think this is the part that I was at before.
Of God is written on human hearts, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you should understand the principle that the law of God is written on.
Yes. I guess I'll pick the Israelites.
Were you a Christian before? I don't remember, John.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you should understand the principle that the law of God is written on human hearts, correct?
No, I do not understand that. I understand that the Bible says that, but there are several different examples that I could bring up, like psychological conditions that.
No. Don't. You're pushing too hard against it. He's going somewhere, and there's something there. This is where I was at. There's something interesting here. He's bringing up a part of our ontology. He's saying that within us all is the written morality of God itself. That's what Wi-Fi Gospel is saying.
Would seem to nullify that particular idea.
If
I mean,
the law
it's
of God was actually written on our hearts, then we would all agree with each other on moral issues. But the fact that we disagree with each other means that God's law is not written on our hearts.
No, because the free will aspect now comes into play. So because we can now freely choose, what we can do now is we can say, well, I do hold these things to be morally the case, but I'm going to deny those in my own righteousness to reason around them so that I can do whatever I want to do in spite of God's moral framework. The moral framework that he's written on, the very moral framework that is God's, that God has installed into all of us. That
Give
is
an
the
to give an example, it'd be like creating robots and then giving them the three laws of robotics, but because each machine had its own will, it will interpret those laws differently.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just figured I add that in.
iRobot.
Even Christians disagree
Yes.
with each other on everything.
Yeah,
God's
and
law
we would
being-
never say that.
God's law being written in our hearts doesn't necessarily mean that everybody then therefore becomes a hive mind. Rather, our natural human nature is to do the things that
Okay. Now you're appealing to the nature. Neat. This is even better.
God instills, and people have the free will to go against their own nature. It's not that. It's
Oh,
not,
They can they would be going against their own nature, which would cause possibly a cognitive. So essentially, what he's saying is that cognitive dissonance is rampant amongst non-believers. So what happens is we know what is morally true, but what we will do is we will freely choose to ethically reason around what we know to be morally true to come up with quote unquote other moral truths, quote unquote. That way we can do the things that we want to do and not have to be in line with God. Neat trick.
You mean
Like
like
they have to
stoning
agree.
That's like saying I could. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to do it.
children?
yeah,
You mean
again,
like
I already
stoning
addressed that.
children?
I already addressed that.
No. Just let it go. I would just let them go because I think you can hang them with this.
15 by the
All
way.
right,
You can
so-
bring it back up if you want.
it
but
No,
it
no,
written
no,
on
doesn't
no,
our
have any
no,
other
I think
no.
it's
argument.
only fair.
Hold on.
I think
You're
it's only fair.
attaching you're attaching this whole sense of like
John, I think you're just talking for the sake of talking. I wouldn't talk too much. I would tell him to go on. There's no point in actually refuting this. I would just ask him a clarifying question. I would ask him to say, is it you, Bryce and Wi-Fi Gospel, is it your position that when it comes to humanity, all humanity has God's moral standards installed in us, and that through some kind of through some other kind of phenomenon, we are able to reason around our own installed moral framework to come up with new moral framework to what? To rebel against God, right? So you don't have to straw man it. You can just kind of follow where they're possibly going, right? Every moral thing that you do points to there being a God. Morality is, if morality is the case, therefore there's a God, because in order for morality to be the case, there must be some kind of moral lawgiver.
it being written on our hearts and everything like that. If you believe that the God of the New Testament is the same God as the Old Testament, then your God is still culpable for all the bad shit that he did in the Old Testament. And if you want to
Yeah, John, you're giving way too much away. You got to give them more rope. Give them more rope.
say that he was only giving laws, because that's what the laws that the Israelites would take or would adhere to, that's totally bullshit too. He
No, they would
makes
automatically adhere to these because it's automatically written in their hearts. God's just basically saying the quiet part out loud.
A lot of different laws in the Old Testament, like how to cut your beard, to put railings on top of your houses, what kind of food to eat, what kind of clothes to wear. He does all those things, and he expects the Israelites to follow those rules.
Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, I think you had sent me that before. Quite a while ago, we had talked about that. There was like over, I think at one time there was like over 20 different ones. Okay, so this is what Nicola, I'm going to share this. So this is the multiple ways that objective gets used. To call the requirement objective is to say it can be an object of knowledge, it can be established true or false, that it can be perceived by our sense, that it is prior to our independent of our preferences or choices, that is part of the fabric of the world, that it serves to justify our preferences being reasonable, that it's capable of being simply, quote unquote, simply true, that it is valid as a matter of logic, that is not constituted by it is not constituted by our choosing to adopt a particular mode of thinking, that it is something that can figure as a premise in an explanatory hypothesis or inference. Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I think mostly in these conversations, it's almost always about, okay, is it independent? Is it just a part? Is it just a part? In this particular case, I think the way they would say it's objective is that it is a part of God, right? So God's morality is just simply an ontological part of him. So God's not actually, so maybe there's no moral reasoning going on there at all. God is a necessary being that just has this morality imbued in it. Is imbued a good thing? No, I don't think imbued is the right term. It's just there. It's just a part of that necessary being. If they hold to that the concept of God as being a necessary being. Necessary being it's a being that always has been and always will be. And since it always has been, always will be, it has this moral standard that's just a part of it.
But yet you guys want to deny it when God tells mothers and fathers to kill their unruly children or to stone LGBTQ individuals, which was reaffirmed in the New Testament by Paul the Apostle.
No, it's very
Just
crazy.
real
because-
fast, guys. Let's make sure to tie this back into the topic, right?
Yeah, I think breakfast tacos was fine in doing that because I think Godless Engineer should have given them more rope. He should ask more clarifying questions. Don't explain so fucking much. Ask them the questions, right? And see that's really the kind of the hard thing here is because you have a hard position. You're holding a position of secular ethics, and they're holding a position of Christian ethics. And the way I could just refute this is, like I said before, if secular ethics requires if ethics is to be defined as moral reasoning, right? And it boils, so this secular ethics is promoting our own reasoning to come up with these kind of things that we find to be morally bad, morally good, or amoral, right? We're reasoning that. If you're going to Christian ethics, and Christian ethics is just simply holding more to some kind of objective attribute of God that is then installed into us by him making us in his image, then all this becomes basically adhering to that particular objective state. But then there's the moral reasoning. So if we use our own moral reasoning, that can cause more problems. So Christian ethics shouldn't be actually our own reasoning. It's the reasoning, or it's just basically following whatever God's rules are. It's divine command. So it's not Christian ethics. It's not Christian ethical reasoning versus secular ethical reasoning. Christian ethics doesn't require reasoning. Any secular reasoning goes around the very nature of the morality that is installed in us by God. Now, there's an interesting thing. I'm still wondering what constitutes a Christian ethic that can't be compatible with a secular view. Meta-ethical divine command theory is consistent with being an atheist. Huh. I wonder how. Say more.
Right. So just so that we
I
are
have-
staying on topic.
I feel like what I was bringing up definitely ties back into the topic just because of the fact that Christian ethics is, by definition, adhering itself to the God of both the New and the Old Testament. And I feel like that is very important to the divine command theory that's being presented by the opposition.
The first
Yeah.
example of a society that we have that had Christian ethics from the top down was ancient Rome, right? I believe in somewhere around the 3rd century, Rome made Christianity the official religion, right? And from top down, there was Christian ethics. Not once do we have an instant of everybody.
But what I wonder if they actually clarified the difference between Christian ethics and Judaism. The ethics espoused in Judaism.
Gathering in the middle of the town to stone a child. Why? Because this is not part of Christian ethics.
But
They had all the
slavery would
authority to
be.
do it.
But
Oh,
slavery
okay.
would
So Christian ethics is different than that. Christian ethics would never comport to the idea, would never go to the idea of, okay, so now we're back to the okay, so now we're going back to a theological. So he just appealed to the history of Rome, adopting Christian ethics at a particular point in time, and the idea of people gathering in the town square and stoning a child. This does not comport to Christian ethics. Okay, that's historic. Let's say I can concede that historically. But now let's go to the Old Testament and let's say that those are true, and you have this written in the Old Testament within Judaism that this was an ethical good, that if you had an unruly child, then yeah, you could take the child and basically the townspeople, the community could then stone this unruly child. So now we're at an impasse because we're still dealing with the same God, right? Are we dealing with the same God or no? If we have Christianity here and Jesus is the Son or a representative of Yahweh, right? Whether or not you hold to some kind of Unitarianism or you hold to Trinitarianism, you're still dealing with the God, the main Pumbaa, the big guy himself, God the Father. And that's the one in Judaism. And Jesus is the son of it, but also the same as it, if you hold to Trinitarianism. We won't get into that. We have an ethical dilemma here. How did this change? All right, let me read what it's consistent with being okay. A meta-ethical divine command theorist at a minimum says that we are obligated to X because it's commanded by God. An atheist can say, I agree, if God commands X, we are obligated to do X. However, since there's no God, there's no such commands. If there were, there would be such commands. We can act as if there is, but there actually isn't. Oh. Yeah, I think I get that. Sure. Okay.
Neither of us have an issue with slavery, but before we get there, I'm totally down to go down.
So you would
You like
enslave
slavery?
people.
You're on board with slavery?
You guys are on
neither.
board with it too.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Oh, no.
completely
No.
against slavery. Humanism
we
promotes
already went through
equality
this.
of everyone.
You already went through
Okay.
that with Wi-Fi Gospel, Jed.
But I have a very simple hypothetical for you guys. According to secular humanism, why would it be wrong if an old lady dies and she leaves in her will the
Oh,
ability
this is weird. I think I read this one when I was scrolling through to find a spot to start.
for her grandchildren to sell her body, to rent out her body for sex, for a profit, so that they can make some money when she dies, because she wasn't able to leave them much.
Well, first of all, trying to capitalize on necrophilia seems like kind of a niche market. Well, under capitalism. Sorry. That's let me hear that question again.
Dies, and
Okay.
she. Whoa, simple hypothetical for you guys. According to secular humanism, why would it be wrong if an old lady dies and she leaves in her will the ability for her grandchildren to sell her
This seems like implying like it may be let me just
body,
sells her
to rent
body.
out her body for sex, for a profit, so that they can make some money when she dies, because she wasn't able to leave them much.
I have actually given this topic a little thought in the past. I think
All right. Okay, let me ask. Yes. I hope Nicola heard that. Okay, I think he's still going. Okay, by analogy, every private is supposed to obey their sergeant. However, if all the sergeants die, the rule they should obey their sergeant is still a rule. It just doesn't actualize. Okay. Okay, so I'm wondering. I'm hoping Nicola heard that hypothetical. My only response to that would just basically be just be like, well, this is interesting because I don't know how much one can actually capitalize on necrophilia. I don't know how many people would actually line up to pay to fuck a dead granny corpse.
Honestly, you'd be surprised.
Yeah. There's also, but so there's also laws in place in this country, and it's called what do they call it? Desecration of a corpse.
Yeah. That,
But then he would argue, but it was in her will that they could desecrate her. I don't know if her will can actually go around that law. So
that's actually a good point. Yeah, do all wills have to be followed by the letter?
I would be so at this particular point, I'd be questioning. Okay, every human being is made in the image of God. What is it about God's image, God creating human beings in their own image, that would allow them to actually get a hard on while looking at a dead old woman and draw them to fuck it? Where did that come from? Where did that come, like, in this God's design, in him making us in his image and writing his morality on our heart? Where does it come into play that you would have individuals that God would basically go, oh, not only did I make human beings with this and this and this, but I also made it so that some of them, not all of them, but some of them, if allowed, they'll get rock hard paying to have sex with a dead old person. You can do a survey at CPAC and the numbers won't shock you. This one guy, I'm not talking about just whether or not you can have the actual chemical response of having an erection. Even if I've taken Viagra, and I can tell you that the furthest thing from my mind while sporting a boner would be to stick it in an elderly woman's corpse. But I like where you're going.
Jesus.
You do you, dude. That statement says more about you than it does about me. Because I would not even want to do it, even if they offered it for free. And the fact that Wi-Fi Gospel is bringing this up is hilarious.
I mean, that says more about him, though, doesn't it?
For Wi-Fi Gospel, yeah, would he?
Yes.
What is it about? I would just turn it back on him and be like, well, that's an interesting claim, because we've been sitting here appealing to the image of God idea that we're all created in God's image. How the fuck did that get created? Where the fuck did that shit come from in his creation? That you would even sport a boner looking at a dead woman and pay to fuck it. Are you, what the fuck?
Hey, free will. Am I right? I don't fucking know. That's
Yeah,
that
free
would
will,
be
but
his response.
matter over mind. Yeah. Okay, this one guy. Well, we
Dude,
know
what? Dude,
we
just
we
leave.
now know that this one guy, if given Viagra, would definitely fuck a corpse.
think that if
The
we
fuck,
were
Tug?
That was a good talk.
justified in calling that kind of situation immoral, it would be because the act would elicit negative emotions from her family that she leaves behind. So like if she has
Okay.
a loved one who would feel emotionally scarred or have trauma based on the idea of their mom or their grandma, you know,
Yeah, actually, no. The better thing to joke about would be like, "Oh no, that's perfectly fine. Grandma was Miss Gangbang 1920. She'll be fine."
What the fuck, Jay?
She's got even dead. She's got a vagine like sleeve of wizard.
What the fuck? Ah, what the fuck?
being
Here's
defiled
the
like that, then
problem.
we could call it immoral in that sense. But in this specific example, you know,
Can I just
would
answer
say
that real
it's not
quick?
necessarily
It's not. Is it sex when it's just basically throwing a hot dog down a fucking
Okay,
hallway?
Tug, abort. Okay, you're getting way too deep into this joke.
Nothing like old beaten leather.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, abort. Like, fuck.
He wouldn't even use. Never mind. I'm not gonna keep going.
Yeah, don't.
necessarily immoral if she consents to it, so long as she's not spreading diseases or anything like that.
All right, so just to
I don't know,
answer you,
Pixie.
if my family is
Just
super
to answer you. Okay.
religious and we find it disgusting that two men can kiss each other and have sex.
This is the part. Let me go back.
Immoral if she consents to it, so long as she's not spreading diseases or anything like that.
All right, so just to answer you, if my family is super religious and we find
my
it
God.
disgusting that two men can kiss each other and have sex. If one of our family members decides to do that and it brings us great pain and we're all very upset by this disgusting act, would that then be immoral?
That okay.
It's not this. Oh my fucking god.
Now here's the thing. The interesting thing is to ask him as a follow-up question. Is that what you think the Imago Dei is? Is that what you think God's morality is that's written on your heart? Is if you see two men kissing, you immediately go, ugh. And if somebody goes, well, wait a minute. Why did you go, ugh? Why is that causing you such great pain to see two grown men? They're consenting adults and they're in a loving relationship. What's wrong with that? It's just causing me great pain. Now, apparently Wi-Fi gospel here doesn't know the fact that back in the ancient Near East, men would actually kiss other men. And this wasn't considered gay.
Nowadays, I mean, men still do it. Who cares? Like, it's
But
not
either way, let's not get into the historical thing. Let's get into the theological. Is it by his position that's his Imago Dei, him being of the Imago Dei, that's God's morality, causing that reaction within him to just kind of go, ugh. And that he thinks is what does he think that that's what morality should be based on? Is ugh, I don't like that. So just because here's another thing. Just because his family or some members of his family go, ugh, I find that disgusting. Does he think that because they find it disgusting, therefore it should be spread about the entire society in which they are benefiting from living in, that those particular individuals who they are so disgusted by should not have certain rights or they should be killed? That's the way to counter that shit. Is that ethical? Is it morally reasonable or is it ethical? So we're talking about moral reasoning here. Is it more reasonable because you went that those two guys kissing, that those two guys should not be able to get married should and not only can they not get married, they should face some kind of judicial punishment for the fact that they were intimate, even in just kissing
Just
each other.
spreading disease, Jay. You know, fucking a dead grandma is totally different. Like, gays are icky. That's what I'm getting from what he's saying.
Yeah, but the look on Jed's face, I think,
Yeah,
It's not
like,
disgusting though.
what the fuck?
That's a fair question, and I think I might.
yeah,
I might
I still can't. And the thing is that it's not a fair question. It's actually indicative to. It's actually telling to me what Wi-Fi gospel thinks morality is. He thinks that what's indicative to morality is, ugh, I don't like that. So if I go, ugh, I don't like that, then it's immoral.
Okay, can I just say something about? It has nothing to do with the thing, but why the fuck would you have a suit? You have a you know, a library case that's bright as hell?
It's
I don't get it.
it's a backdrop. It's just a backdrop, dude.
Well, no. I'm talking about Godless Engineer, not. I know Wi-Fi Gospel has a backdrop, but
Well, at least Godless Engineer's background is real.
yeah, no, I was more commenting about the
There-
brightness of the.
Out of all the things that Wi-Fi Gospel has read in his life, I can guarantee you none of them are probably in the collection that's behind him.
No, I agree with you. I'm just commenting
Yeah.
on the goddamn brightness.
Oh yeah, that
All
is.
right, it's a pet peeve. Doesn't matter. It has nothing
Yeah.
to do with
Yeah, all I can say is at least at least that's that looks like his actual room.
yeah.
Wi-Fi Gospel's just looking. He just, oh, this will make me look studious and well learned. No, not really.
I mean, it never really does it?
Pixie says, "The hell am I listening to?"
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought when I got to this particular. When I was scrolling through this and I got to that point and went, "What the fuck?"
I choose to ignore Togg's last comment. It doesn't exist.
Oh, there you go.
could even
So if the
backtrack and
family
just-
doesn't think it's disgusting, that's fine. Then it's
I
fine.
might just change my answer to your question about the.
No, guys, you completely missed it. He just hung himself. He's just hung himself. They've completely missed it. He just hung himself. Is that what he thinks? Ask him if that's what he thinks morality. You should be asking him. Is that what morality is to you? Going ugh, and then saying from that position of your family's personal disgust at two men kissing. Therefore, as a society, we should then implement that those two individuals should either not be recognized in the same way, them as a couple should not be recognized in the same way as heterosexual couples, and even those individuals should be punished. Is that what you think? Is that how your moral reasoning goes? Because if that's the case, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, the grandma leaving her body to be used by other people. Say no, I've got no issues with that. If that's how she wants her body to be used, then she can go right ahead. And you can say, oh, that's icky all you want, but there's lots of things that we find icky, like homosexuality, and that's between two consenting adults.
I don't find homosexuality icky. I used to. I don't find it icky anymore. It's not my bag, baby, but it's.
Yeah, so maybe talk to your grandmother and see what she can do. You can make some money doing
Oh
that.
my God. Yep. Sorry, I was answering my wife in case that didn't come over the speaker.
This is a
Now, what
really
about- what
weird
about a father and
diverse.
son?
Yeah,
married.
yeah, and the thing is, John, is that he hung himself with that shit. You could have gone all sorts of places. That's his under his position. That's his that if his family is all Christian, and they all believe the same thing that he does about the Imago Dei. When they go ugh at two men kissing, that's their Imago Dei coming out of them. That's God's morality being reflected in their position. Is that God's morality? You going ugh, and then from that you start to basically dictate how a society should run. Okay. Because that's ultimately what this is about. It's not just about his family dynamic. It's about secular ethics and Christian ethics and which one would be better for a society. He just went to his family as an example. He's used two examples, one both basically involving family, and one involved the family in which the family, the grandmother, this is a disgusting hypothetical, but the grandmother leaves it in her will that they can basically rent out her corpse for necrophiliacs to pay to have sex with it. And in the second one, it's his family, right? So now it's within a family dynamic, and whoever they choose to possibly market this dead corpse to in order to basically make money off of. Then in his position, it was, oh, my family, they see two men kissing and they, oh, ugh, and then they're personally hurt by it. It really hurts them. Okay, neat. You want us to set up society in both situations? Do you want us to set up society in that way?
So
No,
Wi-Fi
you wanted to
gospel
test
exactly
specific examples of our ethics, right?
how
And now it's
strong is
wrong
your
when we do it
urge
to you.
kill homosexuals right now?
The
I'm
the
just kinda
sa-
curious.
just as
John, that's stupid. Don't even bother. What you should be, again, what you should have been asking him is that a part of your Imago Dei? Is that the natural inclination of the image of God, God's morals being instilled in you? So if you see two adult men kissing, I mean, what does he think if a father kisses his son? Oh, I don't think anything of that. Okay, but if you see two grown men kissing, oh, that's horrible. That's bad. Okay, in what way? Well, it's obvious that the father's not, intimate with the son. How do you know? Why aren't you disgusted? Why didn't that thought pop right into your head? Why didn't your mind go to the most disgusting thing? And why were you disgusted by two men kissing? Oh, because of everything else that I could imagine them doing with one another. Why are you doing that? Well, it just bothers me. Okay. Yep. Okay.
strong as your urge to go have sex with dead grandmothers.
What the fuck? All right. With that, I'm going to pause it right there. So I'm going to take note. 59 minutes in. Okay, cool. I'm going to take off. I'm going to have dinner. Maybe I'll do this later tonight, but maybe I'll go through this later because yikes. Shit.
What
Anyway,
a strange name. Wi-Fi gospel. What the
every
fuck does that even mean?
every time I've seen this debate happen, and I'll leave it with this. Every time I watch this particular debate, whether it's 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, it doesn't matter. Secular ethics versus Christian ethics. It's a shit show. It goes fucking nowhere. Nowhere. But with that, Pixie, Midnight, Red Fang.
I didn't understand that.
I didn't ask you anything.
I'm here if you need me.
Shut up. Okay, my phone's AI is on the fucking is on the fritz here. All right. Yeah, everybody who joined, thank you. See ya.
Bye.